Good morning, Edgewater and Volusia County, Florida. My name is Carrie Lewis. I am your host for the Edge podcast. I want to take time before we get into today's topics to discuss just a few issues that I have seen brewing for quite some time, and I think it'll be great to address them so there is no confusion. And I want to start by talking about the press release that went out yesterday. And it was talking about the 2026 transition announcement that we released yesterday afternoon. And it said, and I quote, as of 2025 come close to an end, Edgewater Gazette is preparing for an exciting new chapter beginning January 1st, 2026. We will be shifting our focus towards more dynamic live show format. Now, I have got several comments on this post talking about one quoted, great way to stay relevant. But the Edge podcast will become our primary source for daily news. Now, a lot of people are taking the assumption, according to the press release, and you're right, that we're shifting completely away from news writing. Now, that will not be possible at first. We will have to fade that out slowly. And I think that's a great way to do it when you're ending a written format and you're going to a digital format and more live. So we're going to work on that. We're going to continue to see how we can do this to where it fits our readers' views and our readership. We're not here to leave people behind. We're here to adapt to the landscape of the media and to meet our society where it is. So currently right now, newspapers, according to a recent poll, are really fading. And one of the things that are becoming popular is podcasts. So yesterday, when I posted this press release, I called our partner Bondi. She is the owner and founder of Joyful Photography, who has partnered with us recently. And we spoke about this. And, I know that change isn't fun. And if you've been following us from the beginning, I understand your frustration. And I can understand how it can be kind of just, I guess, gut wrenching when something you've been reading since May can be hard. But let me be clear, this change isn't about leaving something behind. It's about meeting our community where it is now and ensuring that our local news remains accessible, immediate, and deeply connected to the people who we represent. Now, if you have any questions about this transition, there is an email located at the bottom of the press release that you can read, that you can see for yourself, that you can look at. And, if you have concerns, we ask you to reach out to us. And that email is edgewatergazetteinc@gmail.com. That's edgewatergazetteinc@gmail.com. And you can find that at our website at www.edgewatergazette.us for more information. Also, another issue that I have been seeing floating around is the AI issue. None of our stories are AI written, not one. I don't know why people has this assumption that somehow our stories are AI written, but it's not true. That's just something that is a narrative that people are pushing. That is something that people are pushing. There's a lot of false narratives going around. And I'll be honest, it's kind of sickening to watch because our news source has never been about being negative or being factually incorrect. Every story we write comes from a press release or come from people that we talk to or things that we can verify. and it has nothing to do with AI. I personally am against AI. I think it's a danger to our society and our jobs. When we return, we will jump into the day's activities and what we got coming up. Deltona drama and misunderstanding, the gray area politics, and then we take a look at our forecast, and then we go to the sports pulse from local and legend to global glory, and around the world stories that stir the soul. We'll be right back after this 2-minute break. Good morning. Let's go. I just saw something very interesting. Hello and good morning, Joshua Bird. Let's jump into today's details. I think it's going to be interesting. Like I said, regarding the press release, please make sure you read the press release. We're going to try to do everything we can to keep our news as relevant as possible. The press release we put out yesterday is not about leaving anything behind. It's about meeting our community where it is and meeting the landscape of news where it is, because newspapers are becoming unrelevant, and we want to try to stay in that deal. Today we're going to be talking about several things. I've seen some rumors, and I'm trying to get them verified. I sent a inquiry to the Volusia County Sheriff, Mike Chitwood, regarding his social media. And the social media rumors that's been going around, it seems like a lot of people are unhappy with this sheriff. And I am waiting on for that to come back so we can talk about that issue and not have any misunderstanding. Well, good morning, Volusia. Our segment for the next hour and many more. Truth seekers, let's talk about the foggy middle ground, the place where politics get murky and ethics start to wobble. We call it a gray area of politics, and Deltona isn't the only city wrestling with this issue. Here's what it looks like. A city contract awarded to someone with close ties to leadership. That's called favoritism. A public event that doubles as personal brand boost. That's called a campaign violation. Decisions made in meetings that weren't widely announced. That's called closed door deals. Now, none of it's illegal, but is it ethical? And that's the $1 million questions. Now, if you talk to experts, they say leaders who operate in this gray politic area, public trust will fade fast. And once it's gone, it takes more than a press release to bring it back. Residents are calling for change, not just in policy, but in culture. They want oversight panels, open forums, and clear boundaries between public duty and personal ambition. I don't see it as a punishment. It's more about prevention. If our government is working for the people, then how can it lead to corruption? And if they held accountable, how can it lead to corruption? And it's about making sure our cities feel like they belong to all of us, not just a chosen few. And when I say a chosen few, we can take, for an example, the Deltona mayor, who has been criticized so much about his unethical. I mean, as far as just recently, he shut down the comments so people couldn't comment on posts on the Deltona City Facebook page. Why did he shut it down? Because he can't handle criticism. And if you're a government that cannot handle criticism, once a government shuts down the citizens from speaking, that is a red flag. And we can't have that in government. It must be stopped, and accountability must exist. And that's something that we don't see, and that's something that we need to get back to. Looking ahead to the weather, let's take a breath and check the skies. Florida's weather is doing its usual dance, part sunshine and part mystery. This morning, we've got patchy fog hugging the coast like a sleepy blanket. If you're driving near the Halifax River, take it slow. Visibility playing a hard and seek. By midday, expect temperatures in the low 80s with sea breeze that might stir up a few surprises. Showers inland, nothing dramatic, just Florida being Florida. Tonight, the skies clear up and we dip into the upper 60s. Perfect for beach walk or porch chat. And for our boaters, moderate chop and 2 to 4 foot wet swells. Small crafts, caution is advised, especially in the near Potomac Inlet. Looking ahead, a cold front might flirt with us later this week. Stay tuned. We'll keep you warmed and informed. And when we come back after the 5-minute break, we're going to jump into Sports Plus, from local legends to global glory. We'll be right back. And remember, you can always check us out online. We're always available. You can find us on Facebook, or you can always shoot us an email. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Edge Podcast. My name is Kerry Lewis. It is Monday, December 29th, 2025. It is a closer in to 2025. Let's jump right into our sports. Time to lace up and cheer loud. First up, the Deltona Wolves are howling with the pride after another basketball win. Senior captain Mike Johnson dropped 28 points and sealed the game with a buzzer beater that had the crowd on its feet. In youth soccer, the Edgewater Eagles earned statewide recognition for just skill. But the sportsmanship, their coach said, we teach kindness before corner kicks. College ball session is heating up. UFC's prepping for a showdown that could define their seasons. And yes, tailgate receipts are welcome. On the national stage, Simon Bowles just snagged Athlete of the Year, and the NBA trade window is wild. Rumors are flying faster than Stephen Curry three-pointer. Sports remind us that grit, heart, and hustle live in every zip code, and today we celebrate them all. And around the world, stories that stir the soul. Now let's zoom out, because while Deltona debates and Florida forecasts, the world keeps turning, and the stories are breathtaking. In India, a solar corridor project is lighting up villages, empowering dreams, 10 million homes by 2030. That's the goal. In Brazil, President Lula is doubling down on Amazon's protections. Indigenous leaders say it's a step towards healing countries of harm. Boy, Amazon's really on that stuff. And they're doubling down. In South Africa, young voters are rewriting the rules. Civic engagement is surging, and local elections are feeling the pulse of new generations. Meanwhile, in Europe, brace for winter energy shortages, and China expands its tech diplomacy across Africa and Southwest. That's because they're wanting to dominate the world. And yes, Russia and Ukraine are still in talks. Progress is slow, but leadership, resilience, and hope are global currencies. And we all have a stake. But let's talk about Amazon, shall we? Amazon, in the recent years and months, have continued to use policies that are not consistent with federal law. The reason I'm highlighting this is because Amazon continues to underpay its staff while overworking their staff on 10-hour shifts that have literally no help, so their staff is overworked and underpaid. Yet most of their staff, if you talk to them, most of them live in hotels and they can't even afford the cost of living. So when it comes to Amazon, I'm glad they're cracking down in Brazil. You know, Daytona Beach, maybe if you would do something like that, the world would be a much better place. As far as South Africa, I am so glad to see voters rewriting the rules, something we need here in Daytona is the rewritten of the rules. For far too long, corruption has sailed, not only in Daytona, look at Deltona, sailed across the spectrum. And we got to change that. We cannot have corrupt leaders. We cannot have corrupt business leaders. As I was saying with Amazon, Amazon continues to overwork its employees, underpaid, and they don't care. They do not care. But that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on Edgewater Podcast. From the city halls to the solar fields, from basketball courts to broader crossings, today's stories remind us that truth matters, and so does joy. Stay curious, stay kind, stay connected, and remember, life is too short to be mad. Life is too short to be sad. Live while you have time to live, because guess what? On this epic day, you're never promised the next breath.